Good morning. So today we'll talk about how to interpret the anthropometric measurements in children. So in the last class we have studied about what is a growth curve, how to interpret, and what are the usefulness of growth charts. It is a part of it only. Before drawing or making a growth chart, we need to make certain anthropometric assessments or measurements. So once you make, then only you can draw the growth charts. So we'll see how we can make various measurements. So as the name indicates, anthropos means man or a human being or the mankind. Metron means measurements. So anthropometry basically refers to measurement of the different values in human beings. That's the meaning. Of course, this particular lecture or the topic, we are more exclusively covering the infants and children, not of the adult. So why we need to do these things? What is the importance of this? It is a single, most portable. It can be done anywhere. Doesn't require a sophisticated lab or instruments, and it can be universally applicable. What is done here in India can be applied to US or maybe any other country or any other area of the geography can be applied, and it is inexpensive. Doesn't require any costly procedures. So with simple things, we can make certain measurements from where we can make certain inferences or we can assess the growth. It is a non-invasive technique. It's not an non-invasive technique wherein we don't put anything into our body. So it's a non-invasive technique, and it reflects the current nutritional status, and it is used to evaluate both under and over nutrition. Whether the particular child is undernourished or overnourished can be assessed by doing a simple non-invasive technique, which is easily portable and universally applicable and inexpensive. This is the importance of the anthropometric measurements, normally about which and how it is done and how it is done in analysis or studies. It is more detailed in community medicine when you go there. But anyway, as we are talking about the children, so now we should know how to make various anthropometric measurements and what are the key points, and from these values how we make growth charts and what is the applicability of that. That is what we are going to see today. What are the various parameters which we measure under anthropometry? There are certain factors which are age dependent and some are age independent factors. Age dependent factors are weight, height, and head circumference, and chest circumference. These are the 4 variables which are age dependent. There are many age independent factors which includes mid-arm circumference, especially if it is done between the age of 1 and 5, and weight per height, which is an age independent factor, and mid upper arm to height ratio. These are all the various factors, or you can say parameters. They are measured, and some are age dependent, some are age independent, and their applicability we'll see. First is the weight. How to measure the weight? As we are talking about children, so we should know various settings. So there are various types of measuring instruments are used, and they are usually recorded using beam type of weighing balance. Beam type, the beam will be there where it will be kgs and kilograms will be given, and where you can stand up or you can put the baby there and you can measure the weight. And we have the modern electronic weighing scales for children and infants. And there are bathroom type of mechanical scale which are normally used for adult. Mostly they are unreliable because every time we need to set 0. So the instruments sometimes they may give unrealistic value. That's why sometimes when you measure, especially for adult, when you measure weight in particular clinic, it may show some other weight, and in different place there may be some variation. This is due to the inherent error of the instrument. And the Salter spring machine, so especially this is done wherever we don't have the electronic or beam balance is not there. And suppose we go to field conditions where you won't find all those things. So we use the spring machines are available. They are also used to measure the weight. So I'll show you the picture of all those things. I'll show you. So this is the electronic one. This is a meter wherein we measure the weight in kgs and kilograms. This is the bottom type of scale. And these are the body weighing Salter type of spring type machines. This is the sling into which the baby is suspended, and this one is hooked to the hook over here. So this is how the measurement is made. For infants as well as children, we can use the Salter type of spring weighing machines by which we can measure the weight. So now normally how in infants and children, how the weight gain occurs. It's called growth velocity as far as weight gain is concerned. Between 10 days to 3 months of the postnatal period, normally baby will be gaining approximately 30 grams per day. This is a normal growth velocity. And between 3 to 6 months of age, the weight gain will be around 20 grams per day. Between 6th to 9th month, it will be about 15 grams per day. And between 9th to 12th month, it will be about 12 grams per day. Thereafter, it gets little lower. So between 1 to 3 years, it will be about 3 kgs per year. And between 4 to 12 years, it will be 2 kg per year. And somewhere around the pubertal spurt growth. So in above 12 years, due to the activity of hormone, not only the growth hormone, including the sex steroids, the growth is a little more accelerated. It will be about 5 to 6 kgs per year. In other words, about 0.5 kg per month. That is the rate at which the weight gain occurs. Here, suppose again the growth velocity. Suppose at birth, if you see the weight is about x kgs, and by 5 months the weight doubles, becomes 2x. Within 1 year, the weight becomes 3 times the birth weight, so it becomes 3x. But later the growth slowly decelerates, and by 2 years the weight. So you can see from birth to 1 year, the weight increases by 3 times. But by the age of 2 years only, it adds another 1 time only. That's by 2 years, it is only 4 times the birth weight. And by the age of 3 years, the weight normally will be around 5 times the birth weight. And by the age of 7, it will be 7 times the birth weight. That's how the normally weight gain occurs in a normal child with there is no nutritional deficiency, and there is a proper environment is given for the growth. There are no growth retarding factors, environmental factors. In such a situation, this is how the weight gain will occur. There's a formula called Veitch formula, so by which you can estimate the weight gain, or you can expect the weight gain. So between 3 to 12 months, the expected weight in kgs will be age in months plus 9/2. That is the formula by which you can, suppose if you have a 9-month-old baby, suppose you put the 9 months plus 9 by half, it becomes 4.5. So 9 plus 4.5 will be about 13.5 kg is the expected weight for about 9-month-old baby. That's how it is being calculated. Between 1 and 6 years, the expected weight will be age in years. Here in this case, multiply by 2 plus 8. This is the formula, Veitch formula, by which you can expect the weight gain. Say for example, the 5-year-old boy. So here you put 5 in, multiply it to become 10 plus 8, 18 kgs. So 5-year-old boy is supposed to have about healthy weight of about 18 kgs. That's what the formula indicates. Between 7 to 12 years, expected weight will be age in years multiplied by 7 minus 5 by 2, and thereafter the growth decelerates. It becomes, you can say, age in years into 3. This is how for given age you will be calculating the, in other words, how you can predict or you can see the growth velocity as far as weight gain is concerned. Next comes the length or height or stature. This is another parameter which are measured as a part of anthropometric measurements in order to assess the growth or nutritional deficiency, etc. Length. Suppose we want to measure the length of a baby whose age is about below 2 years. In those cases, we use an instrument called infantometer. I'll show you the picture the next plate. Infantometer, which is used for a child of age more than 2 years. Then we measure height using stadiometer, which is fixed to the wall and provides a direct reading of height with accuracy of 0.1%. Normally, there's a little difference between height and length. Normally, the length is slightly in maybe few mm or maximum of 1 centimeter. It is slightly more than the height, which is due to as you are standing up in standing posture, the ligaments are opposed due to the body weight. So sometimes the height may be slightly lesser than the length. As you are in supine position, what you measure is the length. As you are in standing position, what you are measuring is the height. So this is the technique of measuring the height and length. This is height. This is a stadiometer, onto which suppose you stand, and with this we directly measure the height. This is the infantometer. So here on one side baby set will be placed, and this is the other movable plank which is moved, which is allowed to press the heel. So and it is the length of the baby is measured this way. Here what you measure is the height or length, more or less same, maybe few mm difference because of the compression of the ligaments. See how the linear growth ceases or stops after the diffusion of epiphysis, and nutritional deprivation over a period of time affects the linear growth. Suppose a person is not fed with nutritious diet, or there is a malnourishment, and as a case of acute starvation, etc., there will be weight loss due to wasting, especially in adolescents. 60% of body stature, that is the height, and 50% of bone mass are wasted due to malnourishment. Suppose in adolescent period, so the nutritional requirements are very important. When it is not given, there will be 20% decrease in the body stature, that is the length or height of the baby, and 50% in adult bone mass will be decreased due to malnourishment. How to measure the length? The infant is placed in supine on an infantometer. Assistant or mother is asked to keep the vertex at the top of the head slightly touching the fixed vertical plank. Just I show you in the picture. The leg are fully extended by pressing over the knee, and the feet kept vertical at 90 degrees, and the movable pedal plank of the infantometer is slightly opposed against the soles, and the length is read from the scale. So, as I have shown in the previous picture, like this is the moving pedal plank. This side will keep the head. So, from here you slowly move and you measure. So, with the technique, so it's the first person of two person, maybe a mother or maybe a nursing assistant can be employed to keep the head. So then this is the vertex, which is again this side. This is the movable plank. So feet flat against the foot piece. This is the foot piece, and So now the measurer should keep one arm over the knees. So that is now again at the heel also here it should be at 90 degree. So now this is the technique of measuring. Here especially this posture we call it the Frankfurt posture, wherein the lower margin of the orbit and the upper margin of the auricular opening both should be in the same horizontal plane. So in this case it is perpendicular. Suppose when you are standing it should be horizontal. So when you are stadiometer it is about horizontal. Now in this case it is a perpendicular in the same line. The lower margin of the orbit and the upper margin of the auricular opening should be in the same line. So children about 2 years of age who can stand straight, we use stadiometer, and child should stand with bare feet and on a flat floor. Suppose instead of the meter, suppose we are using the wall, and the floor should be flat, and the child should be asked to stand against the wall, and both feet should be parallel. Heels, buttocks, shoulder, occiput should touch the wall, and head should be kept in the Frankfurt plane, as I told you. The lower margin of the orbit and the upper margin of the auricular opening should be in the same plane. That's called Frankfurt plane means. A wooden spatula or plastic ruler should be kept at the topmost point. It is the vertex, and from where directly we can measure the height. It should be identified on the wall. This is the technique of measuring the height. Either you can use stadiometer or you can use the infantometer for the children below 2 years of age. So this is for children above 2 years of age. This is the technique. Maybe onto the wall, stadiometer measurements can be placed, and suppose standing straight with foot closure, and suppose we measure the vertex point, the length, from where you can easily measure the height of the child. So this is the technique. So here you can say the heel, the buttocks, shoulder, and occipital area, everything should be touching the wall. This is how one should ensure the body flat against the board. This is how one should ensure. This is the technique of see now you can see both feet closure, and the knee should be straight, and again the head position should be Frankfurt plane. By keeping all these things, you should measure the height. The headpiece, suppose on a wooden plank, this child is made to stand. This is how you should measure the height of the child. Now, height velocity, and what is the rate at which height gain occurs is this way. Between birth to 3 months, so there is an increment of about 3.5 centimeters per month. Later, it little bit slows down to 2 centimeters per month between 3 to 6 months. Between 6 to 9 months, about 1.5 centimeter per month. That's the rate at which the height gain or length gain occurs. Between 9 and 12 months, it is about 1.3 centimeters per month. So between 2 and 5 years, during this period, it is about 6 centimeters per year. And beyond 5 up to 12 years, about 5 centimeters per year. This is the velocity, height velocity, at the rate at which height gain occurs. Now, the total gain during the whole of first year is about 25 centimeters. During the second year is about 12 centimeters. Gain during 2 to 5 years about less than 5 centimeters per year. Height, the entire period between 2 to 5 years about less than 5 centimeters. And between 5 to 10 years, the height gain will be about less than 4 centimeters. During adolescent period, as I said, there is a spartan growth. So there is an increased linear growth. So it will be about 8 centimeters per year for girls between 12 to 16 years. That is the pubertal growth. And for male, it occurs a bit late, 2 years later, between 14 to 18 years. The height gain will be much more than the girls. It's about 10 centimeters per year. This is how the height gain occurs. This is, in other words, the velocity of height at different rate, or what is the rate at which at different pace of growth, the increase in height occurs. That's what we refer as height velocity. Again, using the Ridge formula, we can also expect, suppose we know the birth height, etc., and we can easily expect what is the ideal height of a child or baby can attain at a different milestone. We can easily measure using the Ridge formula. The height is equal to age in years, multiply by 6 plus 77, gives height in centimeters. And as I said, even while describing about the growth chart also, I told you, we can also calculate the adult height of the child based on the parental height. So for which the formula I told was mother's height plus father's height plus 6.5 centimeter for the boys, and father's height plus mother's height divided by 2 minus 6.5 centimeter will be for the girls. So this is the formula. So I told you about 6.5 here. 13 divided by 2 becomes 6.5. Here also both height divided by 2. In this case, since it is divided by 2, it becomes, the simplest formula is father's height plus mother's height divided by 2, whatever the value you are getting. If you add 6.5 centimeter, that is for the boys. The adult height of the can be achieved by the baby if it is a boy. And if it is a girl, father's height plus mother's height divided by 2 plus or minus 6.5 for the girls. So this is the formula normally we can use. Now, how to interrelate between weight and height. The weight for height. So this is again an assessment. So this also talks about the nourishment. Normally, it is assuming that height is not much affected due to malnourishment, but the weight is much affected by the malnourishment. So taking this as a thing, it is calculated weight for height. So again, this is the basis for our BMI calculation also. So weight of the patient in kgs divided by weight of normal child of the same height into 100 is the weight for height. Suppose if the value is more than 90, then the nutritional status of the baby is normal. It is between 85 to 90%. Where we are measuring the weight of the patient or the child in particular, and divided by weight of the normal child of the same height. Suppose from that you should take reference standard from National Child Health Survey. So from this you can take for a particular age, maybe what is the weight for a particular height. That table is there. From where you take this value and you multiply by 100, that will give you this percentages. Since you are multiplying by 100, it gives percentage. More than 90, normal. 85 to 90 indicates borderline malnourishment. 75 to 80 indicates moderate malnourishment. And if it is below 75%, then the child is severely malnourished. That we can make. So for a particular height, the minimum weight should be there. Otherwise, we call the baby as malnourished. Now, based on these values like height or length, weight, and we try to make the growth chart. The growth chart that we have discussed in detail. Growth chart, otherwise called Road to Health chart, and it tells about the physical growth and development. And these are recognized internationally in WHO. That are used by ICDS people, and it's different for boys and girls. I told you. It is for the pink and blue, pink for the girls and blue for the boys. And this also shown in the last class itself. So the growth charts can be plotted using these values, the anthropometric measurements what we made. And once we made growth charts, from where what is the usefulness of those charts for growth monitoring, it's a diagnostics tool, and for planning and policy making, educational tool for action, and it's for evaluation of a particular program, interventional program. Then it's a tool for teaching, a tool for information, how in a particular area, a particular country, how the children are growing, what is the is there any malnourishment, and how it can be intervened, whether the intervention has helped or not. All those things for planning and evaluation and studies, for teaching, for monitoring, for everything as a diagnosis of malnourishment, etc. All these things can be made out by studying the growth charts. So next, the anthropometric measurement. Next is the head circumference. As you know, the brain growth takes place 70% during fetal life itself, and about 15% during infancy, remaining 10% during preschool years. So the head circumference is normally done only up to 5 years of age. And how it is done? Measured by placing the tape over the occipital protuberance at the back and just over the supraorbital ridge and the glabella in the front. These are the area. This is how you place the tap and measure the head circumference. Of course, head circumference is a routine technique of doing during ultrasonography. Was one of the parameters for measuring the gestational age of the child within the mother's womb. So normally when they go, they try to make radiological age of the fetus. There are various measurements are there. One such measurement is the head circumference. The other parameters are femur length and so on, so forth. We expected head circumference in children. At birth, it will be around 34-35 centimeters. And in 2 months, it's about 38. In 3 months, about 40. And 4 months, about 41 centimeters. In 6 months, it will be around 40 to 43 centimeters. In 1 year, it will be 45 to 46 centimeters. In 2 years, it is about 47 to 48 centimeters. In 5 years, the head circumference is expected to be 50 to 51 centimeters. You can see within a year or in almost 9 up to 10 months of gestation, the head circumference reaches about 35 centimeters. The remaining 5 years, it increases only by another 15 centimeters. By the age of 5, the head circumference is about only 50 to 51 centimeters. That you can see the most of the brain growth occurs during the fetal life. And in the so by the age of 1, it is about 45 to 50. You can see the rest around 15-20% occurs during the infancy. But later on, what is occurring at the preschool age is very little. So there's increment of only 5 centimeters between first year to 5th year. So at the birth is about 34 to 35. So by the age of 1 year, it becomes about 45 centimeters. So majority during fetal life, the rest, majority of growth occurs during the infancy and first 1 year of life. Later, the growth is very less, between 1 to 5 years. So by measuring the head circumference, we can also assess the growth velocity at the rate of growth for a given particular period. So till 3 months, about the head circumference increase at the rate of 2 centimeters per month. From 3 months to 1 year, it's about 2 centimeters per 3 months. And 1 to 3 years, about 1 centimeter for every 6 months. And between 3 to 5 years, the increase in head circumference is only 1 centimeter per annum or per year. During first year, there is about 12 centimeter increase in the head circumference. while between 1 to 5 years, only 5 centimeter gain is occurs in the head size. That's what we have seen from the table. The adult head size achieved by the time the child is about 5 to 6 years. And we have used the Dyne's formula, we can use to measure the head circumference in the first year of life. So here we know the length in centimeters, plus 9.5 plus or minus 2.59 divided by 2. So suppose this length in centimeter plus 9.5 divided by 2. What is the value you get? The normal range will be plus or minus 2.59. That is the head circumference during the first year of life. Within that range only it will be. This is how it is being measured. So based on measurement of the head circumference, sometimes those maybe who are having increased head circumference in comparison to the normal child, we call them as macrocephaly or cephaly, and those who are having less, we call them as microcephaly or microcephaly. So whenever the occipitofrontal head circumference is more than 2 standard deviation above the mean, then it is called as macrocephaly, and it is 3 standard deviation below the mean value, then it is called as microcephaly for that particular age, sex, or height and weight. You can see this is the micro with the normal size. You can compare with the microcephaly. The head circumference has decreased in this case, and this is the case of hydrocephalus, where there is a increase in the head circumference due to the increase in the CSF fluid level within these cerebral ventricles. So this is a macrocephaly. So hydrocephalus can be a cause of macrocephaly or cephaly. You can see here this is a normal head circumference, and here is decreased head circumference. So now during Zika virus, etc., now people are there's increasing evidence there is a incidence of microcephaly, and in all forms of hydrocephalus, there is a macrocephaly. There is increase in the head circumference. Now this is the picture. The next parameter, which is normally measured as a part of anthropometric, is the mid upper arm circumference. So it will be around 9 to 11 centimeters at birth. Between 1 to 5 years of age, it remains reasonably static between 15 to 17 centimeters among the healthy children. It doesn't increase much. Between 1 to 5 years, usually ranges between 15 to 17 centimeters. And how it is measured? Measured over the left upper arm at a point marked between the acronym and the olecranon, with the arm bent at right angles. Suppose we bend the arm at right angles, and at the midway between the olecranon and the acromion, between these 2 points, if you measure when the hand is bent at right angles. So you measure the upper arm circumference, mid upper arm circumference. The child is either asked to stand or sit with the arm hanging loose at sides. And if it is less than 12.5 centimeters, it is suggestive of severe malnourishment. And if it is between 12.5 to 13.5 centimeters, it is indicative of moderate malnourishment. So this is the technique of measuring the mid upper arm circumference. Developed on the principle that acute starvation severely affects mid-arm circumference, while height is unaffected. Height may not change, but the upper arm circumference is more affected due to malnourishment or starvation. That is the principle based on this particular measurement. There are a different way of doing this also. One is the Bangle test, wherein 4 centimeter diameter a fiberglass ring with inner diameter of 4 centimeters is slipped up of the arm. If it passes above the elbow, it suggests that the upper arm is less than 12.5 centimeters and child is malnourished. That means suppose the ring is able to get in there means the upper arm circumference is less than 12.5 and it indicates child is malnourished. The simplest way using a ring or bangle test. The next is Sakir tap. This is a fiberglass tap with all this thing red, yellow, and green. Suppose the circumference is measured. Suppose it ends in red, then it is having circumference than 12.5 centimeters, indicating severely malnourished. If it is yellow between 12.5 to 13.5, it is moderately malnourished, and if it is green or greater than 3.5, it is normal. Shading so that we may not accurately measure. Even a paramedical worker, suppose if PRC measures around the upper mid-arm circumference, using these colors, they can easily assess. Paramedical worker can easily assess the neutral status without having to remember the normal limits of mid-arm circumference. We need not know the normal limits of these things. Simply by getting the color, whether the circumference ends in red color or yellow or green, we can easily assess. Next parameter is the chest circumference. It is usually measured at the level of the nipples, at the level, especially children, at the level of the xiphoid preferably in the mid-inspiration. And in children, below the 5 years of, up to 5 years or below 5 years, it should be done by lying down position, and above 5 years it should be done on standing posture. So this is how the chest circumference is measured on lying down posture. And there is a interrelation between the head size and the chest circumference. At birth, head circumference is more than the chest circumference, at least by up to 3 centimeters. Because the head grows very fast during fetal life, the thoracic age develops, the growth is less during fetal life, rather it catches up later. That's why at birth, head circumference is about 3 centimeters more than the chest circumference. Around 9 months to 1 year of age, both will be equal. Head circumference will be equal to the chest circumference. But thereafter, the chest grows more rapidly compared to the brain. Suppose when you are measuring, wherein the head circumference is greater than the chest circumference by more than 3 centimeters, what it indicates? That means the baby may be preterm baby. In preterm baby, thoracic age development is less compared to the head. So normally the head circumference is more, and some baby called small to date. That means the developmental milestones are less. So small to date. For the given gestational age, the growth is less. In such cases, even the head circumference is more than the chest circumference. More than 3 centimeters. Normally 3 centimeters is normally more at birth, but of course it is more than 3 centimeters means it may be small to death baby, or there may be hydrocephalic infants. In hydrocephalic infants also, the head circumference is more because of, as I said, dilated ventricles with increased CSF. Next, we can also assess the growth and nutritional status by, especially age, by doing the calculating bone age. Bone age is useful in monitoring the growth in children and for conditions like hypothyroidism, and this is called congenital adrenal hyperplasia. CH means congenital adrenal hyperplasia and growth hormone deficiency. Whenever these hormonal defects are there, they can be studied by monitoring the bone age. Now we can compare the bone age taken radiography with that of the chronological age useful in diagnosis of growth results. Sometimes we'll get all these cretins or pituitary dwarf, etc. To make the distinction or to know the diagnosis of the growth disorders, we normally compare with the chronological age with that of the bone age. So the calculation of bone age is based on time of appearance of ossification centers, because that led in anatomy as well as forensic medicine. You learn the time of the different ossification centers and epiphyseal and hypophyseal union when it occurs. And suppose radiologically, X-ray of bone is taken to assess the time of appearance of ossification center and union, from where you try to calculate the bone age. The details you learn in anatomy as well as in forensic medicine. Whenever the chronological age is more than the bone age, chronological age is more than the bone age, the causes are delayed bone age. It may be due to constitutional delay, or it may be constitutional dwarfism, or it may be due to chronic systemic disease, or it may be due to hypothyroidism, in the case of preteens, or maybe male hypogonadism. These are the causes for the increased chronological age when comparison to the bone age. The bone age is lesser than the chronological age. That's the meaning. So these are the causes for the decreased or delayed bone age. These are the causes. Whenever the chronological age is, suppose the bone age is advanced bone age, the bone age is more than the chronological age, it indicates there is a advanced bone age. It may be due to obesity, or maybe precocious puberty, or congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or hyperthyroidism, or bone growth dystrophy. These are some of the causes where the bone growth is normally more than the chronological age. There is advanced bone age. The causes are obesity, precocious puberty, and CAH, there is a congenital adrenal hyperplasia, hyperthyroidism, etc., and dystrophy of chondrodysplasia. These are the causes where there is accelerated or advanced bone age is noticed. Next comes the very useful index, that is the body mass index. Body mass index, the BMI for age, if it is more than 85th percentile and it is suggestive of overweight, and if the BMI for the age is more than 95th percentile, this is all based on the JET score. Sorry, this is you can see the growth chart, as different percentile markings are there. So if it is more than 95, when it is associated with the triceps or skin fold thickness of age more than 90th percentile, it is a diagnosis of obesity. Whenever BMI is more than the 95th percentile, it is the diagnosis of obesity. So how it is calculated? Body mass in kilogram divided by height in meter squares. Suppose if you calculate, then the BMI value, and if it is plotted against the standard graph, suppose the plotted value is indicating more than 90th percentile for triceps as well as for skin fold thickness, or the BMI is about more than 95th percentile, then it is the indication of obesity or diagnosis of obesity. So similar to BMI, there's one more index called Ponderl index. So this is also normally done, especially in infants. It's another parameter which is similar to BMI, used for defining the newborn babies as well as with the intrauterine growth retardation. For such people, Ponderl index is done, wherein body weight in grams multiplied by 100 divided by length in centimeter cube, which is measured. So normally in malnourished, small for dead babies, that is asymmetric intrauterine growth retardation. In this case, the Ponderl index is less than 2. So for appropriate age, the normal baby, it will be more than 2.5 grams per centimeter cube. That is the normal Ponderl index value. There are various formulas. Even this one formula, there are different formulas also used. Of course, this will learn in pediatrics. One more index similar to BMI for the babies which are newborn, or as well as babies with intrauterine growth retardation. For such babies, we use, instead of BMI, we use PI, that is Ponderl index. Now, sometimes we can also measure the, suppose this one of the various diagnostic things between, especially the baby very young, how to distinguish between the creatine whether of the pituitary dwarf. One such thing is the proportion of trunk and limb growth. Sometimes there will be proportionately in every different trunk as well limb, both will be stunted in some babies. In some baby, the trunk growth may be normal, but limb growth may be retarded, or vice versa. This can happen. So there is a proportion between trunk, there is upper segment and lower segment. That also can be studied by measuring the ratio. The midpoint of the body in the newborn is at the umbilicus, but whereas in adult it is the pubis symphysis. And of course, in adult, the growth of limb occurs more than the trunk. That is the reason. In children, it is umbilicus, but in adult, it is pubis symphysis. So, upper segment to lower segment ratio at birth is about 1.7 to 1, and gradually it becomes 1 to 1.1 in healthy adults. And in infants, upper segment, that is the prone to symphysis pubis, can be measured by using infantometer. The lower segment is obtained by subtracting the upper segment from the total length. This is how the between the trunk and limb growth, which segment is normal or where there is a decrement in growth, can also be assessed by measuring these ratios. The next is the arm span. This is the distance between the tips of the middle finger of both arms outstretched at right angles to the body, measured across the back of the child. In under 5-year-old children, arm span is about 1 to 2 centimeters smaller than the body length. During 10 to 12 years of age, arm span is equal to the height. In adult, arm span is more in adults by 2 centimeters. Abnormally large arm span is seen in patients with Klinefelter syndrome, as well as these subjects which are suffering from co-arthritis of aorta. And arm span is shorter compared to the height in patients with short limb dwarfism as well as the cretinism. So these are some of these ratios, and the anthropometric measurements can also helpful in the maybe because the clinical diagnosis of conditions like cretinism or Klinefelter syndrome. Of course, there are so many other genetic markers are there by which you can study, but of course, this is the simplest way by which also you can assume whether baby may be suffering from one of these disorders. Now, to measure a regular baby is growing to the particular corresponding age, whether height, weight, and BMI, etc., are normal or upper and lower segment as proportionate. All these things can be studied by visiting the pediatrician at a regular interval. During infancy, up to 1 year of age, you should visit once a month. Monthly visit should be there. And later on, up to 2 years, it should be once in 2 months. Bi-monthly, once in 2 months, one should make a visit to the pediatrician and make all these measurements. And up to 5 years later on, it should be once in 3 months, you should visit, so that all the anthropometric measurements can be made and they can be studied with that of the standard reference values. Thereby, any growth abnormality can be diagnosed at the earliest stage and can be intervened wherever possible. The next thing by which we can also study the development or growth achievement of the baby by the teeth eruption timetable. This indicates the various, especially in the upper teeth as well as lower teeth, various central incisor, lateral incisor, canine, first molar, second molar, at what period of growth it emerges, and when all these milk teeth, when they falls out, these things are given, by which you can also measure the roughly you can assess the age of a child. If there is anything, whenever there is a delay in this process, you can say that the milestone is not achieved or there is a delayed milestone, etc., can be studied by observing the eruption of various teeth in lower and upper teeth as well as their fallouts. This can be measured or can be monitored, by which we can see whether the developmental milestone is normal or delayed or there is a increased. All these things can be monitored by using this particular chart. The next value is the skin fold thickness. So you might have used some of the vernier caliper to measure the diameter of the a ball, glass ball, etc. So similarly, we use a type of caliper called Carpenter's caliper, and especially we can use it in triceps or subscapular region. Skin fold with subcutaneous fat is picked up with thumb and index finger between these two, and caliper is applied beyond the pinch, and you can measure the fat thickness. If it is more than 10 millimeter, it's a healthy children of 1 to 6 years, and if it is less than 6 mm, then it's indicative of moderate to severe malnourishment. So these are the various anthropometric measurements, like you can say height, weight, and height to weight ratio, head circumference, chest circumference, skin fold thickness. These are some of the values when you measure by which we can assess the nutritional status of child, whether it is well nourished or there is obesity or there is malnourishment, the degree of malnourishment. Everything can be assessed by doing all these anthropometric measurements. Using these values, we can plot the growth charts. The growth charts can be studied compared with the standard, and whereby we can make various clinical diagnosis or inferences can also be made. So that completes the study of anthropometric measurements and growth charts. So with this, we'll complete the teaching in this particular session. Everything is left with only related to some of the SDL and other topics that are clinical, yearly clinical exposure, etc. Those things we'll see. And with this, I think mostly we are completing our theory teaching. Maybe one or two little topics are left with, but mostly our topics are covered. And I essentially advise all of you to read regularly. Don't waste your time. Now you are at your home, so try to waste your time in a proper way with a schedule and try to prepare for the internal assessment. We never know, it may be conducted online also, and try to prepare for your university exam also. Thank you.